guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm talking about some recent horror and thriller watches, which includes one of the most disturbing movies I've ever watched and a new found footage favorite. I'm looking back at all of the movies I watched in March, and when I started this month off, I was in a very depressed mind state, and for some reason I was craving dark, disturbing movies. I don't know why. It helped me cope. And I watched a movie that I thought I would never watch in my life, and that is Irreversible. So let me tell you what this movie is about if you don't know. It's a Gaspar Noé film, first of all. It's told in reverse order, and it takes place on one night when a woman is brutally assaulted, and her two lovers, or the two loves of her life, basically spend the movie trying to find out who's responsible and get revenge. And if it sounds disturbing, it is disturbing. The assault scene is 10 minutes long. That is one of the most infamous things about it, and it was really hard to watch, but I was so numb watching it. It didn't affect me till later. It's one of those where it doesn't hit you right away, it hits you later. The movie starts off and it's just so chaotic, pure chaos, and there's flashing lights. They're in a club looking for this guy. It's a sex club. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. There's so much confusion. You don't know what's happening. You don't know who these characters are. You're just thrust in the middle of the situation with no explanation, and there's certain music that is playing in the background that just made me feel incredibly uneasy, and like I was gonna vomit. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. After 10 minutes, there was a brutal attack scene, and it made me cry. I think I was just emotionally a mess, but it's just so real and horrible. And I had to take a break. Then after you get through that, and then you get through the 10-minute scene of Monica Bellucci's character getting assaulted, it's like easy breezy after that. I like that this movie is told in reverse order. I think that's a really interesting concept. And it shows you all of the really disturbing stuff immediately so that the rest of the movie, when you're getting to see these people in their normal state, having a good time, just chilling out and talking to each other, it makes you really sad because you know what's gonna happen to them and they don't, and it's horrible. It's a movie that I thought was really well made, but it's very provocative, and I don't think I will ever watch it ever again. Gaspar Noé, his films mess me up, and I don't know if I can watch any more of them. I got some recommendations after this, but the only other one I watched was Climax, and that movie is also disturbing, but in a different way, and it's also equally nauseating and chaotic, and it just makes you feel sick. It's like you're having a drug trip. Do not recommend. And then I followed up Irreversible with 8mm from 1999. This is a Nicolas Cage thriller. It's written by the same guy who wrote Seven, and it's about a private investigator who's hired by this wealthy woman to look into the legitimacy of this VHS tape that she found in her late husband's belongings. And on this tape, it appears that a young girl is brutally murdered. It's a snuff film, and Nicolas Cage, he watches the movie, and at first he questions if it's real, but then he dives deep into this weird sex underworld porn stuff, and Joaquin Phoenix is there. It becomes kind of a buddy cop movie at a certain point, and Joaquin Phoenix's character, he works at a sex shop, and he knows a lot of inside information on different stuff going on in that world. And it's just really dark, it's gritty, it has disturbing stuff, it has some really great performances. James Gandolfini is also in it. It's just a 90s thriller that I really enjoyed back in the day. It really messed me up, and rewatching it, it makes you really uneasy, and there's a lot of dread. It's sad. It's a sad movie. Oh, Norman Reedus is also in it. Then I watched Fresh, which is currently streaming on Hulu, and I feel like this movie came out like 20 years ago, and I feel like I'm talking about all of these things very late. But anyway, this is about a young woman played by Daisy Edgar Jones, who you might know from Normal People, and she's dating a lot on dating apps, and it really highlights the shitty side of dating apps and how it's just so hard to date nowadays. I mean, I am currently on dating apps, and everything that she was going through, I've seen and interacted with, and it's just the worst. It's just the absolute worst. But you know what would make it worse is if you meet somebody who seems like the perfect guy and he turns out to be Ted Bundy. And this movie examines that. Sebastian Stan is so good in this. He's just having a blast, and you can tell. It's a slow burn. I like the whole first half of the movie. The second half kind of dragged on a little bit. Overall, I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was my favorite thing in the world, but I liked what they had to say about dating and about the dangers that women face every day with just putting themselves out there, because you never know who's gonna kill you and chop a piece of your ass off to eat later. Then I watched Nocturnal Animals from 2016. This is currently on Netflix, and this one was really dark and disturbing as well. This is about a woman. She's an art dealer. She's played by Amy Adams, and she is not happy with where she is in her life. She seems pretty miserable, actually. And her husband, he's played by Armie Hammer, real life cannibal, maybe. She receives a manuscript from her ex-husband, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and it's a book that he desperately wants her to read because he really wants her approval. The movie switches between her reading this book, which is a horrifying story called Nocturnal Animals, about a family who's driving across country on a road trip, and they get pulled over by these really bad people, and the car scene was one of the most intense things I've ever watched. I couldn't breathe for that entirety of that scene, because you know that these people are going to do something wrong. You don't know how it's going to play out. You don't know how bad it's going to go. And it's just scary. It's horrifying. And it's horrifying to think about how vulnerable you are on the road. Especially if you're in a desolate area, and you have no help, you're screwed. You're screwed if you break down or anything. If anybody wants to mess with you, they got it. They can do whatever they want to you. And I like that the movie explored that. It also terrified me, and now I never want to go on a road trip. But anyway, the movie also switches back to Amy Adams' character thinking back on her past with Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays her ex-husband, and it really shows how their relationship kind of falls apart. And the book is his way of coping with their relationship, and it's really dark. It's really interesting, and I thought it was really well done. Then I watched X, which I already did a full review on. I can link that down below, up above, wherever. This is a new horror film from Ty West. It's a slasher set in the 70s. It follows an adult film crew who are on an elderly couple's estate to film their next adult film, which they think is going to be cinematic. It's going to be amazing. And then this elderly couple figures out what they're doing, and things don't go well, okay? They flip out, and people start dying. I loved this one. I loved the aesthetic. I loved the throwback feel. I love that it felt bold and unique. It felt like horror movies from the 70s and 80s that weren't afraid to take risks. I just loved it so much. I'm so excited for the prequel, Pearl, because I just think it's gonna be fun, and it looks like an entirely different movie. So there you go. Then I was itching to watch Motel Hell after watching X because it sounds very similar. This is an 80s campy horror about two siblings who run a roadside motel, and they also kill people and harvest them to make sausage meat. This one is bonkers. It's crazy. It's fun. It's perfectly 80s. Then I watched Windfall on Netflix. This is a thriller. This is also written by the guy who wrote Seven. So this isn't as dark or mysterious as Seven. This is more of a character study. So it follows this guy who's breaking into this wealthy couple's home, and they unexpectedly come home while he's robbing them. And the situation goes haywire from there. This is a slow burn. It's filled with tension, and you're really getting to know these characters and their motivations, and then things just build up to a craziness. I overall enjoyed this. I thought it was pretty entertaining, and I liked the cast. Then I watched Offseason, which is the Mickey Keating horror starring Jocelyn Donahue. It's about a young woman she receives a call that her mother's grave has been vandalized, and she needs to come and deal with it. And her mother's grave is on this mysterious island that is kind of, off in its own part of the world. I don't even know where it is. So she goes there, she rushes there, and then when she gets there, she's told that it's off season. They're about to close the bridge to get over there. So she's got to be quick. She's got to be quick because she'll be stuck. So she gets there, and things are weird. This town is weird. The people are weird, and it's very mysterious, and it just feels very surreal and dreamlike. I don't think this was the greatest movie, but I did like the whole environment, the atmosphere. It was just very unsettling, and it felt very much like Dagon, which is a movie I love. So there's lots of Lovecraft elements, but it doesn't go to ginormous levels because it's a smaller budget. I think it was an interesting story. I liked what they did with it. I liked the suspense. Overall, I thought it was okay. I like stories centered on creepy towns, creepy island towns. Those get me going, and that was working for me here. I loved what they did. There was so much fog in the air, and it just gets me going. Then I watched Eye for an Eye from 1996. This is a really mean-spirited crime thriller from the 90s starring Sally Field and Kiefer Sutherland. So this movie terrified me when I was younger. I probably shouldn't have watched it when I was that young, and I remember just really thinking it was the greatest movie ever. So it centers on a mom played by Sally Field. She's on the phone with her daughter, her 16-year-old daughter, when someone shows up at their door and brutally attacks the daughter while Sally Field is on the phone. She's stuck in traffic. She's miles away. She can't get help. And she's just like, the whole sequence is horrifying and heartbreaking to watch, because you see her go through the realization she's not going to be able to save her baby. And then we see the aftermath of this event, and the daughter's killer is found, but he gets let off with a technicality. So Sally Field's character basically sets out to try to get justice for him in her own way. I think that this one has great performances, especially from Sally Field, and Kiefer Sutherland is the villain. He is so vile in this movie. This movie made me hate him for a while because he's too good. He's too good at this, and there's no redeeming qualities about him. It's just this movie it feels heavy. It feels heavy. I don't know if I recommend it because it's just, I don't know. It's interesting. I think it was an interesting movie of its time, but it's just such a downer. Then I watched Deadware, which I think is my new found footage favorite. It's set entirely on a desktop in 1999, and it follows two characters who are old friends. They're reuniting for the first time in a while, and they get a mysterious invite to play this horror game, and they decide to play it, and it goes in mysterious ways. I love this so much because of the nostalgia. I love that it's set on the desktop, the sounds of the computer, the modem going, and the video chat. It brings back memories, and I just want to shoot it up in my veins, you know, that sound. I miss that old school computer sound. I love that you're basically watching these two characters play this game, so it's like you're watching two streamers, but back in the day. And there's a lot of tension and dread. For me, I thought they built that up very well, and there's things that happen on the screen that will kind of happen out of nowhere, and it's just creepy and unsettling. And the two characters, the two friends, they have great chemistry, so they were very endearing and fun to watch. And just as you uncover the mystery surrounding their friendship and this other girl that they both know, it's just really interesting and captivating, and it's a quick movie. I think it's a little over an hour. It's on Tubi for free, and I highly recommend it if you love old school horror movies. If you love movies like Stay Alive, Host, and The Blair Witch Project, I think you'll like this one. I really liked it, and I do think it's a new favorite. Did I sell that well? I don't know. I was still in the found footage mood, and I checked out this other one on Tubi called Dwellers from 2021. This one started off okay. I liked the premise. So it's following these guys who are shooting a documentary on suspicious activity around the homeless community. So they're interviewing various homeless people about their current living situations, and then they learn of this mysterious thing that's underground killing homeless people. So they venture underground to try to solve the mystery. So this is kind of like a Blair Witch Project. Like, you can tell that they were clearly influenced by the Blair Witch Project. They tried to imitate the Blair Witch Project so much that they didn't do their own thing with it. It didn't go any further than that. And it just kind of got really repetitive, and I got bored. I think it's interesting because I guess you can tell the creator is clearly a fan of the found footage genre. I just would have liked to have seen more from it. But anyway, I think if you are interested in it, it's on Tubi, it's free, so you might as well check it out if you like found footage. Then I watched Night Shot, which is another found footage horror movie on Tubi. So this one was a little better. This one has an interesting concept in that it is shot entirely in one take. So it's like you're really with these people for the duration of their investigation. So it's centered on a young woman and her cameraman, and they're investigating this abandoned haunted asylum that has a dark history. So this movie is 92 minutes, and you go through those 92 minutes with these two characters. It feels like you're every painstaking moment. Sometimes I was like, okay, I'm kind of over this. Can we speed this up? Sort of thing. But I liked that it felt real. It felt like you were seeing behind the scenes stuff of these two exploring things. It's about like 30 or 40 minutes before things start picking up, And so that was a little slow for me, especially because you're watching in real time. So there's a lot of just them walking around talking. And I guess it's doing a good job at building the tension, and it is a creepy environment, but I feel like it took a little too long for me. And then when things do start amping up, it's a little creepy. It's creepy. And I do like that concept of being shot in real time, but I feel like this was too gimmicky for me. I do think that the actress is really good. It just kind of goes batshit towards the end and falls apart, but I did like it. For the most part, I did like it. So that's Night Shot. It's on Tubi. I topped the month off with Benny's Video from 1992, and this is currently streaming on HBO Max. This is from Motel Hell. Is that how you say his name? I don't know. He's the director of Funny Games, so I went into this knowing it was gonna be disturbing. So this is centered on a young boy. He's 14 years old, and he is obsessed with movies. He spends his entire days and nights watching movies. He spends his days in the video store watching movies and renting movies. That's his life. And a lot of the stuff that he watches is very disturbing. This movie opens up with the slaughtering of a pig on video, and he watches this video every day and he's completely unfazed by it. In fact, he's really into it. He's a little too into it. One day he meets this little girl at the video store. She's always out there watching a movie every day while he's there. So he invites her back to his house. His parents are out of town and they hang out, they eat. He then shows her this video. So then he's like, hey, I got something to show ya. And then it goes horribly wrong from there. Horribly. There's a scene in this that is like a solid 5 minutes of a person being murdered, but you don't actually see it, you hear it. You're seeing the things are happening off screen, and that, it was more horrifying to me than anything because I couldn't see it. You can only imagine how horrific it is, and hearing the screams of this little girl, it's really disturbing. I don't think you should go into this movie lightly or without knowing what you're getting into, because that moment, the build up to that moment, because I knew something bad was going to happen, there is so much dread. My chest was so tight, and when it finally happens, you're like, wow. This kid is 14, what the fuck? And it's an interesting look, I guess, at violence in the media. I think that's what the director was trying to say, but yeah, it was really a downer. It was a downer. It was just a month full of downers, and maybe that's why my mental health has just been not getting better. I watched some good ones, some interesting ones, some new favorites, some disturbing ones that gave me nightmares, and yeah, that's all I can ask for, really. So let me know what movies you've watched recently, if you watched any of the movies that I talked about, and I'll leave all my social links down below so we can connect on there and talk about more weird, depressing movies. And yeah, I will catch you next time, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.